4 here at the 2024 Mission WDF Lakeside World Championship. This is the home of World Darts. This is Lakeside! We conclude the men's first round and we welcome to the stage, first of all, a true darting legend, making his return to the Lakeside stage after an absence of 30 years. The only player to hit a 9-dart finish on this Lakeside stage, the reigning and two-time unmissable champion, the Singapore slinger, Beau Greaves! From the Netherlands, Moreno Blom!
Welcome back to Lakeside this evening, where day 4 of the WDF World Darts Championship continues. And welcome back to a Lakey legend in Paul Lim, a man who's taken on mythical status over the years, the catalyst being his 9-dart heroics on this stage against Jack McKenna in 1990. He's still the only man to hit a perfect leg here, and Lim is living proof that age is just a number. There aren't too many darting septuagenarians around, so let's enjoy him while we can. Still a very capable player, and he'll be a tough test for the young Dutchman Moreno Blom, who makes his second World Championship appearance. Another who tries to play as much of the WDF Tour as possible, and he's comfortably accumulated enough ranking points to qualify. It's a fascinating game for so many reasons because of the contrasts. It's youth v experience, fast v slow, calmness and tranquility against fury and frenzy. Andrew Sinclair is joining me, Dan McCarthy, in the commentary box for one of the most hotly anticipated games of this World Championship.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here for this one, to be able to see the living legend, Paul Lim, on this stage. For the first time in 30 years, and yeah, I'm intrigued by this one, particularly because it's a real clash of styles, because Paul, very methodical, and Moreno is one of the fastest players on the WDF circuit, potentially the fastest now that Chris Landman is in the PDC. And I think the one issue with Moreno's game sometimes is that when he doesn't find the treble with the first visit, he can sometimes go chasing it round the board. And when you're playing someone who is differently paced to you and has a very different rhythm and cadence to their play, it's going to be harder for him to find that rhythm. But a steady start from Moreno so far, and finding that treble is an encouraging sign.
139. It is an occupational hazard of throwing so quickly. You are going to be erratic.
Exactly, and you know, I've watched enough of Moreno's games on the tour to have seen him, you know, one of his WDF title wins over in Hungary, he averaged more than 100 in the final. 60. He then made the final in Hungary the following day, lost to Yellow Claassen 6-1 in that final and averaged 67. So the fluctuation in his game is there, but when he puts it all together, you can see the incredible talent he has. He did it on the Euro Tour earlier this year. And in the PDC West Europe qualifier, he lost 6-5 to Stefan Belmont in the first round and an average 98. So the incredible talent is there. It's just trying to close the gap down between what his A game and his C-B game looks like.
He's either got an A game or it's a D game. And if you can find that B game and crucially start getting wins with that B game, that'll stand him in very good stead. It's been a very solid start from Moreno. First to a finish. Paul needs to pile some pressure on.
Moreno, you require 88.
18 or treble. That leaves double 7.
That's
a fabulous start from Moreno Blom. Could be so easy for him to be overawed by the occasion, because we can't underestimate the enormity of Paul Lim's appeal. A man who's still spoken about with great reverence across the world of darts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke with a number of players before the draw was done, and Paul was the game that everybody wanted.
140.
It took on, I think, special significance for Moreno, because Moreno's been quite open about the fact that when he played here last year, it was a slightly daunting experience for him, but also came away feeling that this was the best venue he'd ever played in, and he was delighted to be coming back for a second appearance, but particularly being able to be the one who welcomes Paul Lim back here after 30 years away.
Well, you could see when Moreno Blom walked on, one of the first things he did was point to Paul Lim and look at the crowd and almost try and encourage the crowd to back Paul Lim. More than a dozen players in the men's field that weren't even born the last time Paul Lim was here.
Including Moreno himself. I think the thing with Moreno in recent months is that he's been trying to find consistent results, because his place of Lakeside was pretty much assured for much of this year because of the volume of tour events he's done. And you know, Moreno actually runs a business with his father, and that affords him the time to be able to travel, and also, you know, the business him and his father run is very successful, so he is able to fund his journeys. But I think he's just been trying to play his best game, but also pick up points on a consistent basis. And although his most recent event was the Czech Open, he got to the last 32. He was fairly happy that he'd come through a 500 player plus field, got to the last 32, and yes, I would like more points, but I know I played well to get there, so for him it was a good marker.
140, ready to fire 122.
Another treble 18, leaves the bullseye.
73.
Well, another treble 18 would have left him double 7 again. Double 14. Well, double 7's taking some stick already. Nicely done by Paul Lim. I think what we shouldn't do is almost fall into the trap of thinking that Paul Lim's reappearance is something of a novelty. He can still play. He's averaged over a ton a couple of times recently, playing in Asia.
Yeah, Paul very much still life in those legs, and he's incredibly active across soft tip and steel tip competitions, and he actually has been here for a few days now. Has been up in the north practicing with Kai Fan Leung, who, if he wins this one, he would play in the next round. And there is a real Hong Kong theme to this, because the tournament that secured Paul a place here when he retained the Ulaanbaatar Open title earlier this year, he beat Royden Lam in the final. Now, at the 2019 WDF World Cup in Romania, Hong Kong got a silver medal in the team competition, and who was in that team? Royden Lam, Kai Fan Leung and Paul Lim. So you beat one of your teammates to ensure your place here, and if you then win your first game, you get to play another one of them in the second round, which I'm sure is not lost on Paul, but a tough job on his hands to take on Moreno here, who has been practicing in the venue for quite a long while before this one.
I did meet him very briefly in the practice room, Paul, and it was one of those very surreal handshakes I've had. He asked me to only say nice things about him in commentary.
I think he's one of those players where there are only nice things to say. He was, in fact, Paul, very, very close to qualifying for Lakeside last year. Was in one of the reserve places for the tournament through his good form and good results on the Asian event. Was unable to take up that spot because of commitments with his sponsors, but that sort of inspired him to come back here this year.
Double eight.
66.
No sweat, Paul Lim will come back to the board.
80. All you require 16.
Nice open bed, and Paul Lim used the first dart very effectively as a guide.
Of course, part of Paul Lim's notoriety on this stage is that marvellous 9-darter against Jack McKenna that you referenced, which at the time won him a special prize of £52,000 from the title sponsor's embassy. No such prize on offer this year, as far as I'm aware, although they may surprise us. But the point I was going to make was that Moreno has formed with 9-darters himself. Thrown one on the development tour, and he's also produced one for the Netherlands while playing in the Four Nations a couple of years ago. And it's no real surprise with Moreno with how fast he throws. If a good visit comes and you're playing someone who's at a similar pace to you, you could easily see him being able to repeat the trick and then take out the finish.
134.
Last time Paul Lim played here was in 1994, beaten by John Part, three-time world champion.
84.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Lim's pedigree in world championships on this side of the sport actually predate even the Lakeside hosting it. His first appearance in a world championships was all the way back in 1982 at Jolly's in Stoke. I think it was Dave Whitcomb he played in that first one, and then yeah, he was here pretty much every year from 1986 onwards through to 94, with his best run being 1990 when he got to the quarters, beat Ray Batty and Jack McKenna, and then lost to Cliff Lazarenko in the last 8 that year.
Incredible longevity. It was only 3 years ago that Paul was beating Luke Humphreys at Alexandra Palace.
Yeah, a fact that was not lost on me when writing a little tribute piece about Paul in the programme.
Good look at the bullseye here. Leave a 2-darter.
105.
Good thinking.
92.
Well, it was a very good start to the game from Moreno, but since then, Paul's really taken control. Another double 19. Oh, wrong side of the wire.
That would have been some shot to win the opening set.
I must admit, I wasn't expecting that.
52.
Moreno can afford himself a little smile.
32.
Will now be a big frown because
Paul, you
missed a
require
couple of
24.
chances. Double 7, of course. It's been a running theme.
$17. Moreno, you require 20. 10.
They were wildly
Paul,
thrown.
you require 7.
Double 2 is found, and Paul Lim wins the first set.
Second set, first leg is Moreno to Beau Greaves.
He's going to plan for the Singapore slinger.
100.
Moreno, a very enjoyable watch on his day, but we are seeing some examples of those erratic visits.
I think there is something, or should I say,
74.
when I saw the draw that Moreno had got Paul, the thing that intrigued me was that there was a real similarity to the draw that Moreno got last time, where in the opening round he took on Hungary's Gabor Takac, a very slow and experienced player, and then he won that game. Admittedly, didn't play at his best, Moreno, but won that one fairly handily in the end. But in the second round, he came up against Neil Duff, and Moreno started that one like a train, was finding trebles, looked really sharp, and then Neil slowed the game right down, used his big stage experience, and the change in pace really affected Moreno. He struggled to find that rhythm that a player of his pace needs, and we started to see a lot more of those treble-less visits. And I think that was what I was intrigued about this time, whether he would have learnt from that experience, how he would adapt at this time. And although he had the brighter start in the opening leg, you have seen more of that erraticness in his play.
100.
And that's arguably why, in the end of that first set, when he had chances, he seemed unable to convert them, which is a real shame for Moreno. But Paul doing his job on the stage.
32.
And he's always been a man that plays his own game, but Paul very much at the stage of his career now where he has his cadence and his pace, and he's not going to be moved from that.
It's up to Moreno to pin shots like that. Much needed leg for the Dutchman. It's only a hold of throw, but that could have been 4 legs on the bounce for Paul, and at that point Moreno's confidence would be understandably sapping.
There does feel almost a throwback atmosphere in the air here at the Lakeside. It's been a party atmosphere for much of the opening weekend. And now we've got Paul Lim very much part of the older generation of the game. And you could almost hear a pin drop in here, that the respect that's been afforded to this living legend of the game.
140. 60.
It's a very unfortunate bounce out for Paul there. That looked like he was well on course for a wonderful 171.
61.
Moreno knew he had to switch away from
All you require 152.
That didn't look secure. Did see Paul Lim land a massive 151 shot in the PDC World Cup for Singapore, playing alongside his namesake Harry Lim.
60.
That was against Belgium back in the summer.
59.
Harith Lim, who, if my memory serves me right, was one of the very first winners of the Boys World Masters. Harith Lim, back in the 80s.
A classic pop finish from Paul Lim.
Did amuse me when we were piecing together the programme for this year's tournament.
60.
We asked players to supply us with various bits of information, the darts they use, their favourite players to have played on this iconic stage, and general information about themselves. On age, Paul just put 70 plus. Which I don't think he quite understood the assignment, but a humorous touch anyway from the man who has been playing darts for 4 decades plus.
And been winning titles in virtually that whole period. And the thing is, if he's still got the ability and if he still enjoys it, absolutely no reason for him to pack it in.
Absolutely. A revered and respected figure who also is involved. You see the sponsor there, Darts Live. He is heavily involved in the Darts Live actual business with soft tip machines. It's actually one of those at my place of work, which I do enjoy a practice on. And I will admit, the bigger trebles are a help to a player like me, but for a player like him, you can make the trebles a lot smaller and he'd still find maximums like he did just then.
First one of the match, and you get the sense it was a crucial shot. Break here, and then Paul Lim throws for the match. It would be a very quick and very disheartening exit for Moreno.
84. All you require 83.
Good thinking there to go for the 15th. Single would have left a big fish. It's completely irrelevant though. 2 wonderful finishes on double 16 from Paul Lim, who is 1 leg away from the place in round 2.
Paul to throw first.
And if, well, whoever is to win this one, he'll be back in action tomorrow night for what looks like an incredibly stacked session here at the Lakeside. Neil Duff, who arrived earlier today, seemed in good spirits. Had a nice chat with him earlier. We'll also see the reigning 2-time Women's World Champion Beau Greaves and the man everyone is tipping for this title, Jimmy van Schie.
Viewers will have seen Jimmy as one of the players surrounding Moreno in the walk-on. Compatriot of his, offering best wishes and support.
100.
And he's probably going to need best wishes right now, because since making that very good start, hitting double 7, nothing's really clicked for Moreno. He's been doing what you alluded to. He's been chasing around the board all too often.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's just he's struggled to adapt his own game to the more measured pace of Paul, and that's meant he's not found a rhythm, and then
41.
that tendency to chase, which normally is a good sign of great board management, but in Moreno's case sadly hasn't been tonight, and we're just seeing a very impressive showing from Paul.
24.
Usually you got a very calm demeanour, but you could hear the anguish in Lim's voice then. Poor visit, but it's a poor visit that wasn't punished. Single 19.
96.
Safely achieved. Wry smile on Moreno's face, again switching when he really needed to stay on the 20s. Chance for Paul Lim to wrap this match up. A magnificent return to the Lakeside stage for 70-year-old Paul Lim. Moreno Blom, all he can do is offer his respect and congratulations to the Singapore slinger, who made it look relatively routine, a 90 average upon returning. Paul Lim may be a contender himself. Moreno looks hugely disappointed, but it's Paul Lim who's victorious.
Who's going to be racing the stages of darts for many years to come. Moreno Blom! And the legend marches on to the second round, Paul Lim! Well, ladies and gentlemen,